Steve Vai, and welcome to hopefully the largest online guitar lesson live in history. And I'm very happy to be here, and I've noticed that people are logging in from all around the world. We have a lot of people from South America and Romania and all sorts of great stuff. And this actually came about as a promotion for an online course that I've helped construct for BerkleeMusic.com, and it's a great course. Any place, you can live any place in the world, and you can log in and sign up and take this class. And it's called Steve Vai Techniques. And it was a great opportunity to go to Boston and kind of divulge my secrets, and then give it to Berklee to chop up. And they made this online course, and you can log in. I think there's like 20 students per class, and there's an instructor. And I visit the class once a semester. And it's really nice. And to promote it, we thought, hey, let's give an online guitar lesson for free, because I love talking about the guitar. I love discussing techniques and things that I've learned through the years. And then somebody said, why don't we try to break the world record for the largest online guitar class? And hey, why not? What am I here for, right? So that's what we've decided to do. And actually, it's a little more difficult than we thought, because you know, you think that you can just create a world record for anything, but it's not quite that easy. The Guinness folks are kind of strict about certain things. So I'm going to get started right now and start talking about the guitar and you. And here we go. First of all, the guitar is the greatest instrument in the world. There, I said it. And everybody that I've met either plays the guitar or would love to play the guitar. And one of my goals with this class is to encourage you to play the guitar if you don't, and to maybe show you some things, even if you're an accomplished player, that I think might be able to help you in your quest to play the guitar as best as you can. And the first thing you have to do, if you're a very beginner, is tell yourself, I want to play, I can play, and I'm going to go out and get me a guitar. And you'd be surprised how many people can't even get past that one step because of reasons that aren't good enough, like I'm not good enough, or oh, I can never do that, or oh, there's so many people that are better than me, blah, blah, blah. Well, I used to feel that way too, and when I started playing the guitar, I actually kept it a secret. But, oh, the secret got out. But the point is, if you feel like you want to play, go out and get a guitar. Choose a guitar that resonates with you, something that feels nice. It could be electric guitar, acoustic, whatever. Once you get that guitar, the thing that I always try to stress most of all when I'm talking to students, people who are interested in playing, and what I think is really probably the most important element of playing the guitar, is having a goal and actually knowing what it is that you would like to do. Because if you don't have a goal, it's kind of hard to focus on something. So even if you're an accomplished player, you know, even setting little goals. And when I look back at my career when I was young, the goal that I always had was to play something cool and interesting on the guitar every day that I'd never heard before. And and that was it. And still today, that's my goal, because that's the thing that excites me the most. And it served me well, because I never struggled a day in my life in this business simply because that was always my goal, and I achieved it every day. Everything else came with it. So in any event, let's just say you go out and you get a guitar, and now you've got one. What I'd like to talk about here now, about actually playing the instrument, is just some of the things that I think might be beneficial. You know, I think some people are really afraid of taking guitar lessons, or you know, they feel like if they know too much, it'll get them in trouble. Well, that might be the case for some people, but there are simple principles that you really may want to consider understanding. Okay, so you got to know how to tune this darn thing, because if you don't, you're going to sound terrible forever. And tuning a guitar is very simple. You go out and buy a tuner. That's what I do. Works for me. Or you hire Pete over here and he'll tune it for you. Or you figure out actually how to tune it. And simply, the old standby rule is you go to the 5th fret and hit a string, and then the next string. And you listen for vibrations. There's also the harmonic technique. And you don't even really need to know if the note is flat or sharp. You listen for the vibration. Hear that? it comes up, that's in tune. And you play chords that sound in tune. So there's many books and ways to figure out how to tune up online, but basically and then you tweak your little tuner. I have a very special system here which has these fine tuners, so I can't really do it the conventional way. Okay, so you get tuned up. Now, putting your fingers on the instrument and making a sound, from day one, the first time you do it, the thing I recommend you do is listen very carefully, because your tone is really in your fingers. It's not so much a product of the amp or the effects and stuff that you're using. It's the product of what you're hearing in your head. And when you go to play the guitar, there's so many different ways. It's an incredibly dynamic instrument, perhaps the most dynamic instrument in the world, because you can hit it really soft, you can hit it really tiny, soft, very hard, very aggressive. And the way that you hold your pick and the way that where you hit the string is going to have everything to do with the tone. So holding your pick, I know it can be a challenge for some people, and there's very many different ways to fool around with it, but the most important thing is to feel comfortable. I hold my pick kind of like this, and my picking technique, I anchor my wrist so that I can get some, and some of you might even just need to start out playing one note at a time, just open strings, just to get it to sound good. Now, if you turn your pick this way, or you turn it this way, or you pick down here, or you pick up here, or here, it's all going to give you a different tone. And all of these different tones can be useful. But for the majority of the time, you want to have every note that you play sound good. And experiment with where it sounds good to you. When I first started playing, I had terrible tone, and it was because I picked, and I picked here with the pick like this. I can't even do it anymore. But anyway, it was not a good place to pick and not a good pick position. And I revamped my entire style later on to actually find that sweet spot. And if you see I'm turning the pick, you can hear different tones. So I look for that tone that sounds good to you. So that's just hitting one note. Now, your left hand, a couple of simple things that you might want to remember when you're playing, is when you go to approach a note, you want to have your hand on the neck like this. If you're too much like this, your wrist or something is in the wrong position, it's going to make it difficult later, and you want your fingers to come down on the notes. See how I'm just like this here? Some people play like this, where the thumb is in this position, and that's okay, classical players and stuff. And I do that occasionally if I have a particular kind of run. But you want it to be comfortable, and you want the notes, you want your fingers to come down on the notes. Now, when you pick up a guitar, when you pick up a guitar, the first thing you want to do is have something come out of it. You want to play, you just want to jam, okay. So I'm going to show you a few simple things. One is chords. Okay, now, you can go online and you can find tons and tons of chord charts, and they're easy to learn how to read, but I recommend that you get a chord chart and you memorize every basic chord there is. It's simple. It'll take you, a couple of days to just get your fingers in these chords. For instance, this is just an E chord. But when I'm playing these chords and when you're playing these chords, listen very carefully and make sure that every note comes out clearly. And you're going to hear this for a little while, maybe a day or so. But the great thing about playing is the more you do it, the better you get. And you get exponentially better in the beginning. Like, if you can't play a chord in a day or so, you'll be able to play it if you focus on it. Unfortunately, it gets harder to get better as you get better. But the better it gets, the better it gets. Anyway, so for instance, listen very carefully and make sure every note is ringing like it's got its own little postcode, like its own little town. And here's what I would recommend. The thing about playing an instrument, probably one of the best, most important things to focus on is the development of your ear. You can learn all the technique in the world, and you can know all of the music theory, but if you don't develop your ear, you're never going to be able to express what you're hearing inside, And every step of the way, everything you do is an opportunity to develop your ear. And the most important way to develop your ear is, like I say, listen to what you're playing and make sure it sounds the best that you can get it to sound. Whether it's a chord or it's a note. And when you're, okay, we'll go back to chords. So you get your chord chart, you memorize all your chords, and they're starting to sound good. Even if you just learn 3 chords, E, D, G, you can discover the universe. Many rock stars have done that. Or at least they discovered Sunset Bar and Grill. Now with those simple 3 chords, there's a plethora of things you can do. And one of the challenges you might have is switching from one chord to another. You know, if you'll find yourself picking up your fingers and putting it down, make an exercise out of anything you can't do. I do it now, I do it every single day. Things that I come across that I can't do, I make a little exercise out of it. So if you can't go from E to D, then just practice going. And start slow. Make sure every note comes out. If you can't hear every single note, then just stop and start over and figure out why. And the way that you get those notes to come out is not by pushing hard, but by relaxing. Matter of fact, relaxing is one of your best friends, and it's one of the things that helps to achieve every plethora, every step, every plateau that you're going to achieve is the concept of relaxing. And it's hard to do sometimes because we're always, you know, can be uptight. We play hard and we push hard, but it's pushing 90% and not 100% that gives you control. Even if you're going berserk on the instrument, you got to be in control, and that control comes from just holding back a little bit and letting what you do breathe. You know, that's one way of gaining control. So then after a while, you'll be able to. And then you start learning your bar chords, and then your jazz chords. Etc., etc., whatever your interest is. But anything that I have done, that I do, started out slow and listening and make sure it sounded good. Okay, then you got to start playing in rhythm. And playing, you know, there's all these subtle elements about playing that I think go over a lot of people's head, or if you're a beginner, you don't really, you may not really understand. And one of them I've discussed is your tone. And the tone starts from day one by listening and making sure it sounds the way you want it to. But rhythm is so extremely important because it's a lot different to play and to be able to play a rhythm and to actually lock with a groove. You know, locking in a groove is like, it's like laying in a really comfortable bed, you know, with puffy little pillows and a nice down blanket, you know. It feels good. But it's something that you have to listen for and focus on. And when you fall into a groove, you know it because everything you're doing is locking. And grooving is the process of, it's an inner thing, you know. Grooving is something that happens within you that you express on the outside. And the way that you practice grooving is, it's a really good idea to always play with like a drum machine or a drummer or a click or something like that. And actually, I always carry around with me this little drum machine kind of, it's a Pandora. And this is the new one, and I'm not very familiar with it, but I'm going to try to just get a rhythm up here. It's got bass key and groove and all that stuff. Oops. How do you turn the bass off? Just that there. Oops, whoops. I'm ruining everything.
What's going on here? Bass key?
Pete Musil, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so for instance, this is just a simple rock groove, right? But it's got a beat. Now, whenever I go to play anything, whenever I'm jamming with somebody, or I'm just playing on my own, first thing I do is I listen very carefully to the beat. And I don't just listen to it, but I marry it. You know, I let it get into my ear and into my DNA. And you feel that, and then what comes out is going to be more associated with what's happening here. So I'll just, now you know an E chord, but regardless of what you know, sitting in that key. Now, there's a big difference between that and see, I'm playing with the click there, but it's not locking, it's not grooving, you know? Every click is right on, and then you get a feel and you loosen it up, you know, and you can just know one chord and just practice different ways of strumming, different ways of hitting it, you know? And then as you do it, I'm going to talk about something very important here. Exit. All right. I'm supposed to be intelligent with these things. Anyway,
It's the new one.
it's a new one. Okay, it's my excuse. There's this concept I call spitting while you're talking. No, I'm sorry. It's a concept I call music meditation. And what it is, it's the idea of focusing on something entirely while you're doing it. And meditation basically is the process of focusing your attention on something without letting it veer off. And you notice when we try to focus on things, a lot of times our minds go to other things. But the achievement that you're going to make on an instrument, and anything basically, is going to be a reflection on how well you're able to focus on it, meditate on it. And practicing and playing an instrument is a great opportunity to leave the world behind, leave everything behind, and enter your own little private world of music meditation. And I do it all the time, and it's liberating. It's the most liberating thing you can do with an instrument, because you're in the moment of creating, and it's really quite a thrill. And anything that you do that I'm explaining, or that any technique you're focusing on, anything you want to kind of achieve, you're going to get your best results when you're really focused on it and you keep your mind on it. And when your mind wanders off, you pull it back. So for instance, if you've got this little groove going and you want to feel what it's like to sit in the pocket, which is sitting in the groove, you just keep doing it, and listen, and eventually you're going to lock. I played the guitar for 7 years before I understood what it meant to lock with a groove. I was going to Berklee, and you know, back then it was all about playing as fast as you can, and that kind of stuff. When I moved out to California, and when I was 20, and I started working with Zappa, I remember I was in the studio, and he was telling me to play these things, and I was playing them, and he was saying, "You're not locking with the groove," you know. And he explained the concept to me, and he gave me a drum machine, and I went home and I just focused really hard, and I really got it. But you know, it took the desire to want to do it, and I did. And this is anything that you practice on the instrument. You go into that zone, and then what happens, the cool thing is you start developing. You start developing what you're working on, and that's how I've developed my style. And that's one of the things I can recommend to you, and how to identify with your own style. I mean, there's many different goals a young musician or a musician may have. Some of them may be to just be able to sit and play through these simple chords, and that's fine, you know, sit and play a Beatles song or whatever. And you know, some of you may want to end up being a world-class elite rock guitar virtuoso. Well, you can do that too. The amount of time you put in would be different, but I can tell you how to do both. And really what it boils down to is having the goal and being able to visualize yourself doing these things. When this little example of playing the chords, and I'm going to show you more, and I'm going to start soloing a bit. One of the best things that you can do to improve yourself is the mental side of it. That's really 99% of it. 99% of what you do is all mental, because the physical is more of an expression of what you're thinking. So what I do when I can't do something, I imagine that I can. And I see myself in my mind's eye doing it. I mean, I make the picture razor sharp as I can. And that gives you something to work for. And once you're able to see what it is and hear what it is, I mean, I would see myself actually moving, I'd see myself playing a certain way, I'd hear it, and I'd fine-tune it. And the way that I would fine-tune it, I was keep thinking of things that excited me, you know? And that would change the picture. And eventually the picture becomes real, you know, if you focus long enough. So identifying with a goal is so important. And like I say, your goal can be anything. And if you love jazz and you want to be a jazz guitar player, that's great. You know, there's ways that you can go about doing that, or classical or blues or any of that stuff. I always felt that I wanted to create my own style. And the way that I did that was I would do exactly what I'm showing you, but I would meditate on a particular riff, and I'd keep doing it until something interesting and unique came out. And once I was able to find something that I hadn't heard before, that I wasn't stealing from my heroes, I grabbed it. It was like a little thread, you know? And you just start pulling it, and by meditating on it, and doing it, and then you got enough thread to knit a sweater. And what happens after a while is it becomes easier. It becomes easier to find unique things and work on them. I do it every day. Well, most days. And, but it's the process of keeping your mind focused on something. So I'm going to go back to this little groove here. I'm going to play just some rhythm chords, and I'm going to evolve the rhythm technique, because these are things that you can do. Because that's how you evolve. So if you go to do something like that, you know, and you mess up your rhythm, it's okay. Always back up and start slow. See, if I do this long enough, 15, 20, 30 minutes, eventually I'm going to come up with some really cool stuff, you know? Anyway, so that's rhythm playing. And like I say, you might just start with a little distortion and just be going. That's okay. Whatever level you're at, it doesn't matter. Just keep listening. Okay, now when you go to solo, okay, there's like I say, the tone is a reflection of what you're hearing in your head, and there's many ways to develop your tone. What I used to do when I was younger is I would sit and I would do finger exercises to get my fingers in shape, and I would focus on certain things that would make it sound good, and that would help me from getting into bad habits, and I'd like to show you some of those. There was this one very simple exercise I would do that was just this, you know, and you go all the way up the neck. I wish I had a lot of time because I'd go through the whole thing and many different exercises with you, but we're short on time. But what I'm listening for is for every note to come out clean. And if you try to play too fast and you screw it up, slow down, because you'll sound bad when you start playing fast for the rest of your life. So the ticket is play slow and perfect and make it sound good slow. And that's how you become, it's one of the ways of becoming a virtuoso. Is you start really slow and clean and perfect, and then you slowly get faster. Now that's, you know, if you're interested in doing this kind of thing. But one of the some of the things I would recommend when you start doing this is you want what I call economy of motion. That means if I have to go, I'm not going to go, you know, I don't need to move my fingers that much. I just need to move them. So this way, when you start to play, you've got economy of motion. You're not, you know, so I'd never be able to do that if my fingers were moving a lot. But it started by concentrating on that when I was practicing. Coming down on the notes, like I say, picking up and down and making every note sound good, finding that sweet spot. And stop and do it again if you screw it up. And there's many different exercises that you can do on the instrument to strengthen your hands, which is a good idea. I would figure out all these different weird picking exercises, sometimes with just 2 fingers or going across strings. That's a tough one because you're picking back and forth. But then there's flutter exercises. This is a really good thing to do to keep your, to strengthen your fingers is, you know, you want every note to come out. And it's also important to also practice way up high when you do these things, because it's harder to play up high and over here. See, I always wanted to be able to play all around the neck. So you got to practice around there and use it. And these flutter exercises are really good for strengthening. If you can keep it going for a minute or 2 minutes, it's hard. And then you try it with different fingers, spanning different frets on different strings. And then you do weird things like, or try doing that for a minute. But you'll be shocked at how this develops and evolves your playing really quickly. Okay, so make up your own exercises, find them online. There's tons of them if you like, and you want to be able to solo. These are kind of good things to do, but it's not the end result. Exercises are just to help you develop your technique and stuff. If you just become really great at doing exercises, you're going to sound like a guy that does exercises, or a girl. And it doesn't have very much to do with exercising your inner ear. So then there's scales. Oh God, scales. People are like, I don't know what I should learn. What, you know, should I know the modes and should I know all that? Scales are really just flavors. You know, there's the theory behind it, which you can find everywhere. There's the, you know, everything for the most part. You know, Western music is based on the major scale. And I used to practice every scale in every key, starting from every position at every speed. Boy, I had a lot of time back then. So when you go to actually learn some scales, the main scale that I would probably suggest is your simple pentatonic blues scale, which is oceans of music have been written with that scale and continue to be. And once you know that scale, what you learn not just is the fingering, but the sound of it. You know, whenever you learn anything, even if it's chords, you know, if it's like an E chord, I recommend not necessarily just memorizing what the fingering is, but listen to the chord. And every chord, every melody, every scale, it tells a story. And that story is going to be what you hear in your head. So for instance, if you're learning a D chord, listen very carefully to it. And memorize the sound of it, not just the fingering, but memorize the actual, the atmosphere of the chord. And you know what I do is I take a little I create a story based on a chord, and I take a mental snapshot of it. For instance, this chord. You know, when I listen to this chord, there I am, I'm out on a beach. The waves are crashing silently. There's the smell of, you know, I don't know, palm trees in the air. I don't know, you know, but anyway. It's actually a B flat major 7, 6, 9, sharp 11 chord. And it's okay to know that, but really, when somebody plays it, are you going to think, oh my gosh, that's a B flat? You want to create a sound and give the chord a soul, you know, and that way, when you hear it, you're gonna respond. And when you go to write your music, you'll know that you'll kind of, your ear will turn to a particular chord that it wants to go to, and you'll know it because this is the way you've learned it. Same thing with scales. So anyway, once you know the simple blues scale, boy oh boy, you can live forever. And I'm going to turn the bass on and put it on the key of E, and I'm just going to play a simple E. Come over here, Pete. How do you get the bass on, Pete? Ah, there we go. Thank you, Pete. Okay, so this is just a little E and... Okay, so get a drum machine, jam with some friends, get a little groove going, and just keep doing that. And what will happen is eventually you'll start hearing your fingers going in different places from the blues scale. And a couple of cool techniques to try that you'll eventually get into are things like stretching notes, okay? Okay, so when you go to stretch a note, very important to what I do and what most players do is you put your 3 fingers down, and you need to have this kind of thing happening because you don't stretch with your fingers, you stretch with this, with your hand. And you usually stretch 2 frets. So if this is the note, and you have to hit this note, you got to practice. I mean, I used to sit for hours and make sure that I'm stretching to the right notes. And there's various exercises you can do. But you got to be able to stretch to the right note. That's a basic. Come on, you're going to sound like an idiot if you don't. Anyway. You hit the note you want to reach. Put your 3 fingers down. And bend. Make sure your fingers are coming down like this and that your hand is, you know, you got this thing going on here. Don't do any vibrato or anything, just... And then there's various permeations of stretching notes. There's the wholes. There's stretching a half fret. And practice stretching with every finger. And every string. So what I do when I want to work on stretching notes, and then you can do things like stretching more than 2 frets. Or even like, you know, maybe 5 frets. So what I would do is I'd put this little drum machine on and I'd focus and meditate on stretching notes, and you might get into some cool stuff. Oh, I blew it. Can you set that back up? And most important when you're stretching notes is the face. The face has to move with the note. That's part of guitar playing 101. Because it makes the note sound better. It's like this, the mouth is connected to the finger muscle, you know, and it works. Works for me. Okay, a couple other things. Intonation. You know what intonation is? It's the note when you hit it, the note coming out on pitch. So if I go to hit an E, that's the note, not. See, that's sharp because I'm pushing too hard and I'm pushing the note up. And a surefire sign of an amateur player is somebody who has terrible intonation. Intonation soothes the soul, unless, of course, that's the you know, what you're looking for is you know, that nervous kind of intonation. But anyway, hitting the note and having the right note come out, as opposed to, is everything. So one of the things that usually throws people's intonation off is vibrato. Vibrato is like the soul of the note. It's the most expressional aspect. And there's very many different kinds of vibrato. Some people a lot of times beginners have this tendency to just have this one fast, nervous, you know, deranged mosquito kind of vibrato, you know. And that's okay if that's what you want, but experimenting and having control and mastering vibrato changes who you are, because vibrato comes from here, not your fingers, you know. So let me show you what I do and some of the things you might want to consider. Not jazz, please, Pete.
Oh man, I'm trying.
Give me an aneurysm over here. Anyway, so vibrato is the process of hitting a note and making it go sharp, flat, sharp, flat, or just natural, sharp, natural, sharp, natural, sharp. Like, and you don't want to go. Now, that'll give you a nice round kind of a, I use this technique which is a sort of a circular vibrato, because it makes the note go sharp and flat as opposed to just natural, sharp, natural, sharp. And when you're practicing vibrato, having a command over vibrato is really going to make your melodies speak, you know? And what I like to do is just practice very slow. You know, there's wide vibrato, there's very subtle vibrato, there's fast, slow, and I practice every kind with every finger, you know? You know, there's nothing more sensual than a nice slow vibrato. That's okay, Pete, just put it on anything, I don't care. Not that, though. That's okay, I don't need that anymore. You can shut it off. So try going from like fast to slow, you know. You'd be surprised how hard that is. But when you can do it, it really feels good. And then you practice vibrato that's very wide and very subtle. And very fast and subtle, very wide and hard. Yeah. And do it with every finger on every string in every position, because it's harder to vibrate these notes, you know. And then you start stretching notes and adding vibrato. You can see that having control over your vibrato, it gives you your musical vocabulary a much wider range. So you've got vibrato, you've got stretching, you've got chords, and all of these things can be applied to any level of playing that you're at. But But like I say, what I do a lot of times is I try to imagine myself doing things that are a little bizarre, and then I work on them. And the more you start working on something and focusing on it, the more you're going to develop it into something. And then you're going to end up having a big vocabulary of riffs and stuff that are unique to you. And that's really that's really fulfilling, you know, because when you go to write songs, they'll sound more like you. Okay, so I guess we've hit our mark. Is that right? We've kind of done okay here.